Hey everybody, it's Party Elite with another episode of Total Breakdown. This one was submitted through our Discord that you can join through the link in the description down below, and it pits Oroka Boss and his Greenskins against the Dark Elves of Revan Shan. I apologize if I mispronounced that. Now bear in mind, Oroka Boss also has his own YouTube channel, and a link to that in the description down below as well. We begin, as always, with talk of composition and deployment, and you can probably tell we're in for some serious micromanagement in this one. Let's take a look at the Greenskins first. As you can see, Azag is in charge up in the air and up front, not the front line, but these guys will be able to creep forward and do a fair amount of skirmishing nice and early on. We've got 2 units of Goblin Wolf Rider Archers, and alongside them we have Mogreb's Mangy Marauders, as well as the Death Creepers. Right behind them is the true front line. In the center, more or less, we've got 3 units of Black Orcs for that armor-piercing, heavy-hitting, heavy armor ability there. And then on the ends, we've got these Savage Orcs, and these Savage Orcs over here, followed by these Savage Orc Biggins and these Savage Orc Biggins. These guys, again, don't be fooled by their low armor. They do have physical resistance, and that's nice to fool the opponent who might bring in armor piercing, and it'll be a complete waste. And then all the way at the back, we've got the Goblin Archers and the Rusty Errors, which hopefully I can pronounce right now. On the other side of the field, as you can see, Malekith is in charge atop Seraphon, his wonderful black dragon, and we've got behind him a front line of these alternating Bleak Swords and Dread Spears. So just in case there are any trolls coming into the front line or a giant, these guys are anti-large, and of course, not anti-infantry, but capable against infantry as well. And we have silver shields up front in case there's any ranged. Right behind them, we have the Harganeth Executioners and the Witch Elves, again an alternating line, so that's the heavy hitting there. Armor-piercing anti-infantry, they can push around for flanking maneuvers, rear charges, get a lot of work done, and the Witch Elves can push forward and force, through the madness of Cain, enemy units to stay engaged in the front line that might otherwise push back to intercept the Harganeth Executioners. Then all the way at the back, we do have these Black Ark Corsairs and the Blackguard of Naggarot. Of course, there were actually like 3 lines like that when they started moving. And these guys, again, Blackguard of Naggarot, armor-piercing and anti-large, so they're the serious anti-large component that complements the Dread Spears, while the Blackguard Corsairs will be able to provide assistance against infantry, again, coming in with flanking maneuvers or pushing in wherever gaps are being formed, potentially by the Dread Spears. Now, with all that said, let's take a look at how it breaks down. Of course, nice and early, Malekith does creep forward, looking for an opportunity to maybe get some early magic off, but you'll see in response we have Azag pushing in for that same reason, and all of that range support coming in as well. And just like clockwork, of course, the ranged fire comes in, but so too does Spirit Leech, and Spirit Leech is, of course, going to cause a great deal of damage, and you'll see all of these Goblin Wolf Archers and Spider Rider Archers push forward and start firing away at the front lines as Malekith creeps away, but the better call over here would actually be to fire at some of these Witch Elves. These frontline units all have silver shields. The focus instead, the Harganeth Executioners also have 100 armor, so while they aren't shielded, they are armored, and there's only 1 armor-piercing ranged unit in the lot. So better off firing at some of these Witch Elves that can be pretty threatening when you've got an infantry-heavy army. So that's just one little point there, but you'll see very deftly managed here. These guys pull back just as the infantry gets a little too close, not too soon, not too late, peeling away into some safety, and these guys just have to give chase under the fire of that constant shower of arrows, I should say. And Azag over here as well, just waiting and looking for an opportunity to use a spell again. And again, these guys sort of creep around, creep apart, stay away from each other, and try to bait the enemy into these Rusty Errors and the Goblin Archers. Of course, there's no reason for the Greenskins to push forward apart from Azag, who pushes forward and pops the Fate of Buna on the Harganeth Executioners. Good call there. Armor-piercing, anti-infantry, those guys will do a lot of work against the Black Orcs, so eliminate them from the field nice and early, and you'll see that micromanagement continues as these guys swing around and these guys peel behind the front lines. The Rusty Errors and the Goblin Archers now getting engaged, firing away into the trees, though a little unfortunate. They're not going to be as effective as they fire into the trees. You can see a little bit of damage being done here and there, though, but these guys are absolutely crucial to causing morale damage as well, and you'll see the Harganeth Executioners over here have taken a tremendous amount of damage without even being engaged in melee. And over here now we've got Blade Wind coming in, but these Savage Orc Biggins creep forward just in time, more or less dodging that for the most part. And of course that is magical damage, so their resistance is worth nothing, and they dive right into the Witch Elves, and the Witch Elves get to work. They're anti-infantry. The madness of Cain hits these Savage Orc Biggins, and these guys are not going to have the best of times, unfortunately, in this situation, and they're stuck in that engagement. Meanwhile, over here, the Black Orcs are about to dive into these Bleak Swords. Over here on the right, we've got these Savage Orcs being double teamed, and it would have been a little bit better to see if one of these units could have crept around or snuck through this gap over here, try to thin out and push them in from the rear, so the Savage Orcs will be taking more damage per second. To the left over here, you'll see the Greenskins are pushing forward instead, trying to dive into the woods here and do a little bit of work as the Dark Elves are countercharging as well. And we've got these Savage Orcs pushing off to the side, maybe hoping to get a side charge in there. And at the back, you'll see we've got these guys peeling back in, hoping to get shots off into the rears of the enemies, while Azag is still up in the air, trying to provide some morale support. And you'll see at the left there, we already have these Dread Spears falling apart now. Take a look as Malekith creeps forward and uses Doombolt on Azag the Slaughterer. Pops Foe Seeker in response, needs that extra speed. This is all wonderfully done. Look at this. Look at the micromanagement here. Turns around, down comes the Doombolt, and it completely misses. Does absolutely nothing. Azag the Slaughterer doing a nice little twirl around there, dodging the Doombolt and responding with Spirit Leech on Malekith, and Malekith is taking a lot of hurt there. Wonderfully done there. Great micromanagement. And back here you'll see, or rather up front here, you'll see in the trees, these Bleak Swords have given up. The Dread Spears have given up. Everything is falling apart. The Witch Elves are still willing to fight, of course, inflicting these Savage Orc Biggins with the Madness of Cain, so they are stuck in that engagement up front. Meanwhile, over here you'll see Malekith dives into melee for himself, trying to inflict some pain into these Black Orcs, 2 units of Black Orcs over there, as the Savage Orc Biggins, the anti-large unit, is completely routed off the field by the Witch Elves, and at this point, Murderous Prowess kicks in, as does Murderous Mastery for the Witch Elves, of course. So they'll be doing a lot more work under the influence of Murderous Mastery, and at this point the Greenskins are in a bit of a tight situation as they are engaged in melee across the board here. You'll see these Black Orcs are falling apart in the center. These Black Orcs are not having a good time. Azag decides to dive in, pops Wa to try and take care of Malekith, and does a decent bit of damage to Malekith. He's not going to come out on top in a prolonged engagement there, but Wa is, of course, helping out. Malekith responds using Stand Your Ground to keep his troops standing there and fighting. The spears over here dive into Azag. He is, of course, on a mount, so he is large, and look at that. Azag's health is dropping as well. He needs to pull out, but he has kept Malekith in there for long enough that the Rusty Arrows, and the Goblin Archers, all of these range units were able to just fire away at Malekith and reduce his health. He has about a quarter health left, maybe just a little bit higher than a quarter health, and Azag, of course, is able to take to the air into safety as the Dark Elves don't have any range, but you'll see these Black Orcs have completely given up on the fight. They wish to leave. These Black Orcs as well, not in an ideal situation, and Azag now dives in to the trees, and this may have been a bit of a mistake, maybe a bit of an oversight there, but the Black Guard of Nagrand are right there, so you'll see Azag quickly turns around and takes to the air, maybe noticing that a little too late there, but just in time to not take too much damage. Now the other unit of Black Orcs are falling apart, while back here you'll see these Witch Elves have managed to penetrate through and are now giving chase to, unfortunately, the wrong unit. They won't catch the Goblin Wolf Rider Archers, but the thinking there is interesting, because if they were able to inflict the Madness of Cain on the Goblin Wolf Rider Archers, that would more or less take them out of commission as a ranged support unit. Instead, though, by giving chase there, these Witch Elves got shot down from multiple angles, stood no chance, and now they're absolutely falling apart. They are wavering. Very soon they'll be willing to give up. There you have it. There is the rout up front. Again, still, you'll see these Black Orcs not resuming the fight, not willing to fight, as these Harganeth Executioners continue to pummel away at the only Black Orc unit that wishes to stick around to a certain degree, though there you have it. They do break. Azag, meanwhile, looking for an opportunity to provide some support to the left here. You'll see Terror is starting to kick in as Malekith dives into the engagement over here. Azag takes the bait, dives in, range support coming in as well, so Malekith in a bit of a tight spot, but the Black Guard of Nagrand respond right away. They dive into Azag, and he takes a lot of hurt. His morale drops as well. He needs to turn around and take to the air, but of course the woods are keeping him slow. Malekith in a tight spot as well as that range support continues, and he makes the foolish mistake of chasing after Azag. Takes a couple more hits there than necessary, should have pulled away, should have pulled in the other direction, and over here you'll see again the Black Orcs have been completely taken care of. These guys are broken, these guys are routing, have fallen back far enough, while up front over here Malekith is about to pop another Blade Wind, this time focusing in on the Death Creepers, doing a little bit of damage there, but more or less forcing them to fall back as Malekith is pulling to the other side as well, preventing their range support from taking him out. Off to the left over here, you'll see we've got some units rallying, and off to the right as well, as you noticed earlier, some of these units are willing to fight once more, and right there is the order to peel in, come together, and form up. Especially important, as I've mentioned before, when leadership is low, and if you're the Greenskins and you've got exceptionally low leadership on your units, you definitely want to form up. Secure flanks, keep your leader close, and keep these guys willing to fight. Up front here, meanwhile, you'll see these Black Orcs still somehow returning from that rout, continuing to fight, wavering now. Of course, the Harganeth Executioners are right there. We've got a couple of Bleak Swords in there as well, so surprisingly sticking around. They've killed 97 Dark Elves, still willing to stick around and fight. Up front, Azag, you'll see again creeping forward, looking for an opportunity to hurt Malekith, use a little bit of magic perhaps, or bait him out. In comes another Spirit Leech, doing a decent bit of damage there, and Malekith decides to dive in, and this is a very fatal flaw in the plan here, pushing forward, chasing after Azag. Maybe there is another Blade Wind waiting to happen there, but it seems a little too soon after the other one, and in response, of course, you'll see all of these archers come flying through, and there it is, the Noxious Breath from Malekith. But again, take a look at the micromanagement here on Azag. There's the order to just shift over to the side there, and off goes Azag, and then he shifts right back in. So all of that breath completely wasted, and Malekith, now the focus of a lot of fire, decides to rout. He wants to go home to mommy, and in comes Azag giving chase. He doesn't want to let Malekith change his mind about that retreat, and all of these troops now from the Dark Elves under a lot of threat as their leader is routing. Their leadership is going to be very low. Azag flies overhead, maybe potentially causing a little bit of fear there, but not doing enough apart from scaring these Witch Elves off the field, getting them to rout. And again, the Greenskins now forming up over here while the Dark Elves are forming up in the trees. Not a bad call. Tree cover is going to keep them safer than otherwise from any range support. And of course, they're all going to be hidden, so the Greenskins can't actually tell what's going on. You'll see over here these Witch Elves decide to return to the fight. Though they are standing outside of the trees, they are willing to duke it out once more. And over here, you'll see Azag just continues to give chase to Malekith, and he wants to either drive him off the field, which is right here, or using Foe Seeker, I think, to stay caught up. I think Foe Seeker was used earlier, but run out now. Staying caught up, of course, Malekith isn't all that fast, so a tight spot, and there is Foe Seeker. So just trying to finish Malekith off, but death or departure, either one will work for the Greenskins. And you can see over here the Dark Elves now beginning to creep forward, and this was a little mistimed, I have to say. They should have crept forward a lot sooner, before Malekith was nearly off the field, because take a look at what it does to leadership as Malekith leaves the field. These guys on the left here very quickly willing to give up. In the center, we have a shatter going down. On the right, these guys losing their will to fight as well. And look at that, these guys are already wavering, so the timing there was really bad. Should have gone in when the leader was still on the field, because the leader leaving gives you a -16 to leadership, and that's what you're seeing happening right here across the Dark Elf field. And you'll see the Greenskins just pulling further and further back. Sorry, I used the wrong brush there. Looking for an opportunity to fire into the sides of some of these shielded units. Of course, these very mobile ranged units are able to peel around and get behind the enemy and fire into their backs, completely avoiding their shields. Over here, you'll see, though, the Black Orc Corsairs are just barely able to catch up to these Black Orcs and do a little bit of damage over there. They turn around and charge in, though. The Black Orcs, they're looking for a fight. They're looking for some wah. Over here, again, we've got those shots coming into the rears of the Hargoneth Executioners. Again, armor-piercing and anti-infantry, so a worthwhile target, and the Rusty Arrows using their arrows to just reduce armor all across the board. You'll see those two, the Dread Spears and the Bleak Swords on the left, who are more or less willing to give up already, have been made to rout. And now these guys come back in, start firing away at various units. The Blackguard of Nagorond, I think, are the next target there, and the Greenskins just swarm in. So much range support coming in from multiple directions. A little bit of range fire on this unit of Dread Spears would have pushed them off the field, as their morale is already very low. They are wavering, but they're about to engage in melee, and that might just do the trick. And over here, you'll see we've got the Blackguard Corsairs now chasing after the Goblin Archers, trying to again prevent that range support, while over here on the left, you'll see more of that range support coming in, and some of those routes, those guys had rallied, and now they've shattered completely. We've got the Hargoneth Executioners over here routing as well. The Blackguard of Nagorond sticking around and fighting. Azag drops in over here, pops Wah to provide some support to these Savage Orcs. Unfortunately, they rout nonetheless, but with his charge, these guys get completely terrified. They were low on morale anyways. Now they don't want to stick around. The Hargoneth Executioner's not going to have a good time against Azag either, especially when Wah is active. These guys also get terrified off the field, and again, you'll see these units sort of collecting themselves, getting together. Some of these guys are now out of ammunition, so they have to engage. Shots coming into the Hargoneth Executioners, trying to make sure they turn into routs and shatters. Unfortunately, they don't. They wish to stick and fight, but the Sundered Armor now, along with that charge from the Goblin Wolf Rider Archers, was a wonderful move, just using these guys together to keep the Hargoneth Executioners at bay. In comes Azag once again, hoping to strike terror and fear into the enemy, while back here you'll see these Blackguard Corsairs being a little wasteful as they give chase to these Goblin Archers who are on the route. They should have turned around and chased after the Rusty Arrows right away. Immediately as that rout broke out, they should have turned around and chased after the still willing to fight units. So they stuck around there for far too long, and I think in a couple of seconds, maybe 30 seconds or so, they'll turn around and give chase to the Rusty Arrows. You can see they're chasing some of these stray units over here, and in just a moment's time, they will turn around and, well, realize they're actually being shot at by a different unit, and there you have it. That turnaround happens, chasing after the Rusty Arrows now. Now, Azag is still in a bit of a rough spot. He's using Foe Seeker here and there to get out of these tough situations, because if he takes too much damage and he falls, the Greenskins are done with. But you'll see these guys just swarming around now, taking care of these Dread Spears. Again, an anti-large unit, but they were on the route, so not too dangerous for these large units. And over here, Azag once again diving in, this time against the Blackguard Corsairs, hoping to strike fear into their hearts, use terror, and there it is. These guys are willing to give up as well. And as these Bleak Swords are giving chase, as the Blackguard of Nagorond are giving chase, Azag is of course able to turn around and take to the air. We've got some range support coming in from the Rusty Arrows. Azag sticks around for just a little too long, takes a little bit of damage there, but the Forced Order comes through. He turns around and tries to take to the air. Great use of Azag there, just pinging the enemy, coming in and out, doing a little bit of damage, bringing fear and terror, and you'll see again another volley from these Goblin Archers here, doing a touch of damage to the Harganeth Executioners, but more or less hoping, I think, for that morale damage, and in comes a charge as well, and look at the morale drop on these guys. That range support comes in as well. The Blackguard of Nagorond are the only unit equipped to deal with Magrav's Mangy Marauders in melee, of course, but even they have extremely low morale, and the Rusty Arrows are right here, able to get a volley off as well. In comes a couple of shots. Azag looking for an opportunity to dive in as well, of course, after taking care of these Bleak Swords over there, deciding instead to turn around and chase into this clump over here and maybe eliminate the enemy once and for all. In come these Savage Orcs, in comes Azag, pops Wah, in comes all of these units into melee, getting a full surround on the Blackguard of Nagorond and the Bleak Swords. The Dark Elves do not wish to fight, they wish to leave, and as a result, of course, a wonderfully fought, a wonderfully won Pyrrhic victory for the Greenskins. Now, this was a fantastic battle where both generals led their troops cautiously, taking risks every once in a while. At the end, the risk-taking paid off for the Greenskins, and their heavily ranged army managed not only to scare Malekith back to Mom, but also helped rout the entire army. Never underestimate the power of range support, especially when it comes to morale damage. These Greenskin range units managed to dodge and encircle and fire their ammunition almost entirely unhindered, and Malekith took too many risks in the presence of such great firepower. As always, make sure you subscribe to this channel for more Total War content and keep sending in those battle replays. I do think it's one of the best ways to learn, and it's always great to see such amazing battles from the community. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the battlefield.